The Council's final decree, the Galactic Council chamber, was cold and bright. Aliens of many kinds sat around the great table, each one quiet but watching closely. At the center stood a tall figure with dark eyes and pale skin, Ambassador Rin. Of Earth, he looked calm, but inside he knew this was not a meeting. It was a sentencing. High Chancellor Vorel, a creature with silver tendrils and glowing eyes, spoke with a flat tone. Earth has been found guilty of violating our laws of technological containment. A murmur moved through the room like wind. Rin stood tall. We only protected ourselves, he said softly. Our planet was attacked first. We responded. We survived. The Chancellor slammed a hand on the table. You developed weapons beyond what was allowed. You refused to dismantle them. Rin didn't flinch. Because we knew this day would come, he said. We knew the Council feared us. The Council chamber grew silent. Then the Chancellor said it, the final decree. Earth is hereby banished from the Galactic Council. You are cut off from trade, protection, and diplomacy. Your voice will be erased from our records. Rin didn't beg. He didn't speak again. He simply turned and walked away. His last words before leaving the chamber echoed like thunder. History will remember this. Back on Earth, the people watched in silence. The broadcast was played. On every screen, Earth had been exiled. There were no protests, no cries, only quiet nods. As if they had expected this all along. In a hidden underground base deep under Antarctica, a red light blinked. A man in a black uniform stared at the signal, then turned to a large steel door. He placed his hand on the scanner and whispered, Project Phoenix is now active. The door opened to a massive hangar. Inside were giant unfinished ships, long and dark. Engineers, soldiers, and scientists stood ready. They had waited for this signal their whole lives, for years. Earth had suspected the Council might one day turn against them. Even after joining the galaxy, humans were never fully trusted. They were fast learners, creative, emotional too unpredictable. So Earth had prepared, in silence, in secret, and exiled before exile even came. They had built hidden shipyards on dead moons and gas giants. They trained pilots in zero-gravity bunkers. They studied forbidden technology, not to attack, but to survive. Now they no longer had to hide. In the cold, dark orbit above Mars, a small ship waited. Its name was Reckoner, the first of the Ghost Fleet. Captain Mara Zane stood on the bridge, her eyes on the stars. She spoke into the silence. Order confirmed. We are no longer under the Council's law. Her crew nodded. No cheers, no celebrations, just purpose. They had work to do. Back in the Council's inner circle, the alien leaders thought Earth would soon fall. Without trade, without allies, they believed Earth would weaken and fade. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't understand Earth's history. This was not the first time humanity had stood alone. It would not be the last. Weeks passed. Then months. The galaxy moved on, or tried to. But strange things began happening in deep space. Council scouts vanished near old Earth routes. Stations reported phantom signals, then went silent. One trader swore he saw a Terran warship near the Annex Belt, only to be laughed at. But behind the silence, Earth was moving. The Ghost Fleet. Trained in dead systems, new weapons were tested. Alliances were quietly built in the shadows with species the Council had forgotten or ignored. Back on Earth, a child asked her mother, "Why did they ban us, Mama?" The mother smiled softly. "Because they feared what we could become." "Are we bad?" The girl asked. The mother shook her head. "No, my star," she said, holding her close. "We are not bad. We are human. And that is something they can never control." As the stars turned above, and Earth's skies stayed quiet, deep beneath oceans and ice, machines woke up, engines hummed, weapons gleamed. The war fleet had no name yet, but when it moved, the galaxy would remember. Because Earth had been banished, now it had nothing left to lose. and that made it more dangerous than ever before. Shadows of steel. No official message came from Earth. No declaration, no answer to the Council's exile, but across the edges of explored space, strange things began to happen. It started small. A scout ship from the Velari Union went missing near the Oracle Drift. They called it a systems failure, a quiet mistake in a dead zone, until the next one vanished, and then the next. The Council blamed pirates. The Velari blamed faulty tech. But none of them knew the truth. In the darkness beyond their reach, something was moving. Something built by human hands. Captain Mara Zane stood aboard the Reckoner. Her ship drifted just outside the orbit of a collapsed star, its engines cold and silent. The crew wore black suits with no markings, no flags, no names. Only one word stitched inside every collar. Ghost. They were the Ghost Fleet, born in exile, trained in silence. No records of their ships existed in any Council database, because Earth had erased itself, so it could rise again unseen. In the cold bridge of the Reckoner, a silent alert flashed. Unknown vessel detected. Small, scout class, Velari markings. Mara gave a slow nod. She raised her hand and pointed. "Power up shadow field," she said. "Let's see how blind the Council really is." The Reckoner shimmered, its shape blurred, its presence vanished, and in that moment, the Velari scout passed within 3,000 kilometers and saw nothing. Down in the weapons bay, Specialist Wren tapped his console. Target lock confirmed. But the order never came. The mission wasn't to destroy. It was to observe, measure, record, and remind them later when the reckoning came. The scout ship continued. On its way, its crew unaware they had just passed within range of Earth's most advanced stealth cruiser. Back at base, Mara transmitted one sentence back to command. Council scouts can't see ghosts. Meanwhile, the Council held a quiet emergency meeting. Reports from frontier worlds were stacking up. Disrupted signals, missing drones, brief sensor flashes. One admiral said it plainly. "I believe Earth is testing us." The Chancellor slammed his hand down. "They were banished," he said. "They have no allies, no resources." But in his heart, he remembered Earth's history, and that history whispered, "Never underestimate humans." In the underground command bunker under Europa's ice crust, Earth's War Council gathered. Holograms flickered to life fleet captains from secret shipyards, engineers from hidden labs, AI war commanders buried in cold data vaults. Project Phoenix was no longer just a project. It was alive, and it was watching. "We don't strike first," said Commander Elena Reese, "but we make sure they never forget why we were feared." Each officer nodded. Earth would not attack blindly. It would wait, it would study, and then it would strike where the Council was weakest. Weeks later, a new rumor spread across the galaxy. A Drakari slave transport was found floating in Sector 19, completely intact but frozen. Its engines were melted from inside. Its crew unconscious but unharmed, and carved into the steel walls was a single word: remember. No race admitted it, no fleet claimed it, but everyone suspected the same thing. Earth was sending messages, with silence, with steel, with shadows. Back on Earth, children trained in VR battle simulations. Teenagers studied starship schematics like ancient history. No one complained, no one rebelled. Every citizen knew they were all part of something bigger. Not revenge, not conquest, but survival, and they were proud of it. In a quiet asteroid belt near the Thren system, the Reckoner met with two other ships. One was the Vindicator, a missile frigate with dark solar sails. The other, Echo 7, a sensor ghost ship unmanned. AI-controlled, completely undetectable. They ran drills in complete silence, ships appearing and disappearing like shadows in water. No lights, no sound, only movement, only precision. Captain Mara stood again at her command window. Stars reflected. In her eyes, "We are ghosts now," she whispered. "But soon we will be storms. The Council still believed Earth was broken. But deep in the forgotten places of the stars, Earth's war fleet grew in size. And more importantly, in silence, because Earth had learned the greatest truth of all. Power doesn't shout. It waits, and when it moves, it is already too late to stop. The test of fire, the Drakari Empire didn't believe the whispers. They didn't fear Earth's silence. To them, the humans were exiles, broken and forgotten. So they pushed hard, and they picked the wrong border to cross. Drakari Commander Zenthar stood aboard the battleship Iron Claw. He laughed as his fleet moved into Sector 12, once protected by Earth before the exile. "This is ours now," he growled. "No Terran ghost is going to scare us." But deep beneath the shadows of the asteroid belt, Earth was already watching. The Spectre, a human recon frigate, tracked every movement in total silence. Captain Darren Liu narrowed his eyes. "The Drakari want fire," he said. "Let's show them the kind they've never seen." Above a gas giant called Virella 9, the Iron Claw deployed drones. They began scanning old Earth satellites, laughing at the weak tech left behind. One Drakari officer reported a strange signal. It was faint, almost like static, until it suddenly turned into one clear sentence. "This territory is still claimed." The bridge of the Iron Claw went quiet. Then all 12 screens on the Drakari warship went dark. And then red. The first strike came from nowhere. A beam of compressed plasma sliced through the Iron Claw's engine core. Then 3 more beams struck its escort ships at once. The Drakari fleet barely had time to react. "What's hitting us?" Zenthar shouted. "No ships on radar. No heat signatures, no visuals." But Earth's ghost fleet didn't need to be seen. They were already inside the Drakari battlenet, feeding them false readings, blinding their sensors, and watching them fall from orbit. Captain Liu spoke calmly. "Test successful." Then he gave the final order. "Release Valkyrie Protocol." A dozen sleek Terran drones burst from the dark side of Virella 9. They weren't just machines. They were AI-piloted combat units designed for one thing: to erase threats without leaving evidence. Within 6 minutes, the Drakari fleet was gone. No distress call, no escape, only silence. Later, a salvage ship from the Zelen Republic found the wreckage. Melted metal, silent hulls, no signs of survivors. But they found something else floating in space. A small black container, smooth and round. Inside it, a crystal cube with one simple message playing in every known language. "We are not gone. We are not weak. We are watching." This was only a test. The footage leaked within hours. Some believed it was a hoax. Others felt the cold weight of truth in their bones. The Council called an emergency session, but none of them had answers. Who gave them permission to act? Shouted one delegate. Who said they could kill again? But the room had no answer, because Earth had been banished, and that meant they needed no permission from anyone. In the icy orbit of Pluto's third moon, the Ghost Fleet gathered again. Ships that didn't exist in Council records, weapons powered by singularity cores, and captains trained not for defense, but for dominance. Inside the flagship Omen, High Admiral Lysandra Black stood at the command platform. Behind her, Earth's new emblem glowed, a silver world with flaming wings. She turned to her officers and spoke softly. "They laughed when they banished us. They thought they erased us. But all they did was give us time. Back on Council worlds, fear spread without form. Ships rerouted, orders were redrawn, and across the galaxy, one name began to spread again: Terrans, not as diplomats, not as traitors, but as shadows with steel and fire, as ghosts who didn't need an army, because they had already become one. In the training domes of Mars, young cadets watched the footage of the Drakari fleet's destruction. They didn't cheer, they didn't laugh. They studied every frame like scripture, because Earth wasn't just rising. It was becoming something more. The Council had forced them out, But Earth had returned on its own terms, and what they brought was not peace. It was precision. It was purpose, and it was only the beginning. The councils panicked. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer calm. It echoed with footsteps, shouting, and fear. Panic had entered the room like a shadow with a pulse. And no one, not even the High Chancellor, could ignore it anymore. The Drakari fleet had vanished. 12 warships gone without a signal. And now, systems across the outer rim were reporting strange black objects in orbit. Small cubes, perfectly smooth, each one broadcasting the same sentence. You cast us out, but we did not die. Delegates from across the galaxy demanded answers. Is it the Terrans? One shouted, they're supposed to be isolated, said another. But they're not, whispered a third. They've changed. High Chancellor Varel stood, his hands trembling. Earth was given exile. He said slowly, they had. No allies, no funding, no voice. He paused, staring at the data on the screen. But now they control 3 dark zones. A single screen showed footage from a mining drone. It had accidentally drifted into a dead sector. What it recorded was impossible. Massive warships under construction. Floating shipyards orbiting a neutron star. Dozens of Terran flags, red and silver with no planet code. They had never left. They had just gone deeper. The Council Security Chief, a rigid insectoid named Kavarn, stepped forward. We need to act, he said. We must form a blockade around Earth's original borders. But the Trade Guild delegates snapped. And risk another Drakari incident? Silence fell again, because deep inside, they all knew the truth. The moment to stop Earth had already passed. Meanwhile, on a forgotten moon called Talos 7, a hidden base received new coordinates. The message was short. Phase 2 approved, proceed. With initiation, inside the base, Commander Cirilang reviewed her fleet. 12 stealth cruisers, 30 interceptor drones, 5 experimental voidlancers. All silent, all black, all Terran. She whispered to herself, they're scared now. Good. Back on the Council's main world, even civilians began to worry. On the Holonet, people whispered about ghost ships and silent warnings. Some said Earth had allied with machines. Others believed they had found ancient tech. But no one believed Earth was weak anymore. A message appeared on every major network one day. No one knew how it was sent. The signal came from no traceable source. The message was simple and cold. You erased our voice, so now we speak. Through silence. It lasted 6 seconds, but it was seen by over 200 billion beings, and that was enough to break whatever confidence the Council had left. In a quiet corridor, Councillor Vexer met with an old rival in secret. You once said the humans were too passionate, Vexer said, too emotional. The rival nodded. I was wrong, he replied. They were never too much. They were exactly what we feared. Inside Earth's deep core command center, beneath old Mount Elbros, the War Council watched the reaction. They didn't cheer. They simply adjusted the next phase of strategy. Let them panic, said Admiral Lysandra. Panic makes empires sloppy. And she was right. Across Council territory, fleets were moving too fast, too blindly. Checkpoints appeared near neutral planets, and allies began turning on each other. Fear had done what Earth couldn't split the Council from the inside. On a Council military world named Zarian 4, an officer received a strange package. Inside was a hologram cube, glowing dimly. When he activated it, a human woman's face appeared, calm and quiet. Her words were simple. You exiled us to the dark. We became what lives there. The officer didn't sleep that night. At last, the High Chancellor stood again before the Council chamber. His voice no longer held command. We are no longer dealing with the Earth we knew, he admitted. This is something colder, smarter, prepared. And the worst part he didn't say out loud, but everyone thought it. They had created this monster themselves. Because when you banish a world and strip it of voice, You teach it silence, but silence is not peace. Silence is planning. Silence is sharpening. And Earth had been sharpening for a very long time. The silent armada, it began on the 12th cycle of the galactic calendar. Without warning, without sound, without light, over 100 sensor stations across 12 star systems triggered the same alert. Unidentified vessels detected no transponder, no signal, no response. For a moment, Council Command thought it was a glitch. Then the number changed, 200 vessels, then 500, then 1,000. No one could believe what they were seeing, because these ships had no record, no origin. They simply appeared above the burning clouds of Zenthar Prime. The sky darkened, not from storm, but from shadow. Hundreds of Terran warships moved into orbit, silent and unchallenged, each one marked not by a flag, but by a single glowing line down the center, blood red and pulsing like a heartbeat. No transmissions, no demands, just presence. On the planet's surface, civilians stared upward. Some screamed, some ran. But the ships didn't attack. They just hovered watching. One merchant whispered, "Are those humans?" Another replied, "No, those are ghosts with teeth." Council fleets scrambled. Admirals shouted orders, activating old defense grids, but no weapon could lock onto the Terran ships. They weren't jamming the signals. They were rewriting them on board the command dreadnought Eclipse. Admiral Lysandra stood before a full fleet for the first time. Her voice calm, her expression cold. "We do not strike yet," she said. "We reveal, we remember, we remain." And across the stars, thousands of cloaked ships deactivated there. Shields, they came out of hiding from behind moons. Inside gas giants, under ice oceans, they showed the galaxy what Earth had become. A fleet of silence, a fleet of fury. A fleet born in exile, now moving in perfect unity. At the Galactic Council's main hall, terror gripped the room like frost. Delegates received real-time images of the Terran Armada arriving near core worlds, not attacking, not speaking, just existing, uninvited, unstoppable, undeniable. High Chancellor Vorel's voice cracked as he asked, "What do they want?" No one had an answer. Then, without warning, all systems received a single broadcast. Not sound, but thought. A psychic signal designed to be felt, not heard. It echoed in every species' mind. In every language. We did not forget. We did not forgive. But we are not here for revenge. We are here to remind you. We are never weak on the world of Crichton 6. An entire military base powered down. Not from an attack, but from a virus slipped into its systems 3. Years ago, a human-made eye now rested inside its core. It whispered to its creators, "Shall I begin?" The response came instantly. Not yet. The Terran fleet held position, moving like breath slow. Unstoppable, patient, and one by one, other species began to question their allegiance to the Council. The Kailari offered secret trade routes. To Earth, the Tormik Syndicate sent tribute. And some neutral worlds opened their ports quietly, hoping to be spared. Because they understood something the Council didn't. This was not war. This was demonstration. On a Council newsfeed, a political analyst said nervously, "They're not attacking. They're just being everywhere. They're changing the meaning of power." And in truth, they were. Because Earth didn't come with flags. They came with silence. And silence was spreading faster than fear. Deep in orbit above a red dwarf star, a group of human engineers finished construction on the Heavenfall, the largest Terran dreadnought ever built. As it powered up, nearby comets began to curve around it, pulled by its gravitational core. It was not a ship. It was a warning inside. The Heavenfall's bridge, a single phrase blinked on the command screen. Visibility complete Phase 3 ready. And below that, one line written in Terran Common, "Let them stare." Back in the Council chambers, Vorel whispered to himself. We thought they would die in the dark. We didn't know the dark was where they learned to grow. He looked at the glowing map. Dozens of Terran fleets in position, all without firing a shot. And in that moment, the High Chancellor understood. The war had already begun. Not with fire, but with presence. The fall of the first star Zenthar Prime was a fortress. A city built into a planet, armored with layers of titanium, plasma fields, and automated turrets. For over 1,000 years, no invader had breached it. It was the crown jewel of the Council's military might, and it was the first to fall. No warning came, no demand, no countdown. At precisely 0300 Galactic Standard, the stars above Zenthar dimmed, one by one, as if something massive had swallowed the light. Then they saw it. Not a ship, not a fleet, but a wall. Thousands of black Terran warships formed a silent arc across the sky, covering the horizon from pole to pole. Each ship had no symbol, no number, no sound, just one pulsing blue light at its core, like the heartbeat of a machine preparing to awaken. Inside Zenthar Command, alarms screamed, General Valrix shouted, "Raise shields, charge rail turrets, ready void mines," but the defense grid didn't respond. It was frozen, every system. Every cannon, every code was locked, not hacked, overwritten. They found one message blinking across all terminals. You prepared for war, but never for silence. From orbit, Admiral Lysandra Black gave the final order. Commence phase. 4. Her voice was calm, not angry, not proud, just resolved. A single Terran drone moved forward. It detached from the dreadnought Omen like a drop of ink falling into water. And when it touched the atmosphere, it disappeared. 2 minutes. Later, every light on Zenthar Prime died. Cities went dark, skies turned black, and the surface began to shake. From deep below, plasma cores overloaded silently. They didn't explode, they collapsed inward. Entire defense towers vanished into themselves. Antimatter generators imploded in blue rings of nothingness. And above it all, the Terran fleet waited, watching. Not a single human fired a weapon. Zenthar Prime destroyed itself, trying to fight ghosts that were already inside. When the chaos ended, only dust remained, a world of metal and fire. Gone. In its orbit, a black monolith floated uncharted, unregistered, perfectly still, etched into its surface. Written in 100 alien languages were 6 words. Let this be your only warning. The galaxy reacted like a wounded animal. Shock, disbelief, then terror. The Council lost its strongest military base without a single shot from Earth. And worse, without even seeing a human face. Council fleets withdrew from border systems. All eyes broke ancient treaties to distance themselves from Earth's wrath. On every news stream, only one name was spoken. Terrans. Not as diplomats, not as survivors, but as the force that rewrote the rules. In backroom meetings, Council leaders begged for strategy. How do we stop an enemy that never arrives? How do we fight ships that don't need orders? How do we negotiate with silence? But no one had answers, because they had spent too long underestimating humans, too long laughing at their passion, their chaos, their fire. Now that fire had turned cold, and cold fire burns slow, but it never dies elsewhere in a small refugee camp on the moon of Halden. A child looked up and asked his father, "Is Earth the monster now?" The father paused and whispered, "No." They became what monsters fear. On Earth, no celebration took place. The destruction of Zenthar Prime was a message, not a victory. Admiral Lysandra stood before her crew and said the words that echoed through every hidden Terran ship. "We are not here to rule. We are here to remind them what happens when they throw us away." Back at the Council chamber, no one spoke for 12 full minutes. The silence was heavier than war. Then Chancellor Varel, pale and trembling, said the words none of them expected. I fear we didn't banish them. I fear we released them. And he was right. Earth was no longer the weak voice in the room. It was the storm waiting outside the door. Not shouting, not demanding, just waiting. Zenthar Prime had been the first star to fall, but in the dark corners of space, everyone now whispered the same thing. It would not be the last. The throne of stars, the stars had changed, not in light, not in shape, but in meaning. Once, the council saw the galaxy as theirs, a map of systems, borders, allies, and rules now. It was different now. Those stars belonged to the ones they had exiled. In less than a cycle, Earth had gone from silence to command. No fleet challenged them. No planet dared refuse them. Even the void itself seemed to move aside when the Terran armada passed. But Earth had not claimed the galaxy by war. It claimed it by presence. It claimed it by becoming something more than feared. It became inevitable. A summit was called on the neutral station Arcus V. Every major species sent a delegate. Every corridor was filled with whispers. And at the heart of the station, a seat remained empty, the central chair. No one had sat there in 3,000 years, not since the founding of the council. But today it was reserved for the species once cast. Out, a single Terran ship approached. It moved like a shadow wrapped in light. Not fast, not loud, just absolute. From its bay, a human stepped out. Not armored, not armed, just calm. She walked into the council chamber with quiet eyes. Her name was Ambassador Ellen Rhodes. She did not speak for war. She spoke for what remained. I am not here to conquer, she said. I am not here to erase what you built. I am here because you once told us we had no place among the stars. She looked around slowly. And yet, here we are. The chamber was silent, not out of fear, but out of understanding. The council had ruled by fear, tradition, and control. Earth had returned with silence, evolution, and balance. And now, the galaxy wanted that balance, one by one. Representatives stood. The Kalari pledged cooperation. The Zarn offered technology trade. Even the Tormuk once, loyal enforcers of the council, knelt their heads, slightly in respect. The old council was finished, not destroyed, but dissolved. By time, silence, and a single undeniable truth, humanity had endured. And those who endure lead. A new charter was signed, not ruled by bloodline, not by fear, but by survival, innovation, and unity. The Stellar Accord was born. And at its core, Earth sat quietly, not on a throne of gold, but in a circle of equals. Above, in orbit, the Terran armada stayed still. It did not fire. It did not move. Its job was complete. It was not built for war. It was built to remind the stars that humanity had not died. It had waited. It had learned. And when the time came, it had returned, not to burn, but to rebuild. On Earth, people watched the signing through the sky mirrors. There were no cheers, no fireworks, only quiet pride. They didn't need glory. They had history. Ambassador Ellen stepped away from the council circle and looked up. In her ear, a soft voice from command spoke. Ma'am, the Armada awaits your final order. She smiled gently and replied, let them rest. We are no longer at war. We are home, in a dark room deep in the council archives. An old historian updated the galactic records. He paused as he reached the entry for Terran exile. Then he erased the word exile and replaced it with one word, ascension, because the ones they cast into the dark had not vanished. They had learned to shine without permission. They had become more than survivors. They had become stars themselves,